In this video, find the 6 things that are wrong with sailing in Game of Thrones on HBO. Number 1 thing that is wrong with sailing on Game of Thrones is most of the scenes look like a painting. That the backgrounds look kind of cheap. So where they've really spent a lot of money to create wonderful dragons, lifelike dragons, they have created really bad backgrounds that look like a cheap painting of ships at sea. Number 2 is that most of the scenes are filmed in a sound stage, so they're not actually on a boat, so they're not very realistic depictions of being on a boat, and it all looks like a set in a Broadway play. Third is, even when they are on the water and they're sailing in completely flat water. So sailboats don't sail in flat water. If there's flat water, there's no wind, there's no sailing going on. So unless you got a motor, you're not going anywhere in flat water. So even when we have the scenes with Jorah and Tyrion, they're sailing along great in completely flat water. So the sailing is pretty much only used for jetpacking. That it's usually not integral to the story. The exceptions are the hard home, Tyrion in the Doom. The sailboats are used as a means to jetpack from one part of the world to the other. So the classic is going from Karth to the slave city of Astapor, or Dany sailing from Essos to Westeros to move the story along at the beginning and ends of the seasons. Say that, you know, boats are a lot more important to the story of Game of Thrones and the Song of Ice and Fire than they are to the fantasies of Tolkien. So in that sense, I guess it's an improvement. And you know, if you read the books, storms do become important and the sailing becomes more important, but those details are lost in the series. For season 8, I believe that they're going to have some sailing associated with Euron Greyjoy and his transport of the Golden Company to Westeros. You can be too hard on a production which is really the most expensive TV show in history, that they skimped on one aspect of the production, and namely that being the sailing. It's really expensive to have mythical tall ships, and so the fact that they're mostly CGI'd or paintings is understandable, because they have spent more than any other TV show to create the 8 seasons of Game of Thrones. And most of the action is going to happen on the land anyways, if you're true to the story of George R.R. Martin, his Song and Ice and Fire series. It's mostly a land-based series. Subscribe to Slowboat Sailing so you can see the stories that matter to cruising sailors. Our video reviewing the top 10 sailing scenes in Game of Thrones.